All right, today we're going to talk about something that might just change the way you think about your health. We're diving deep into the hidden connection between the stress we all deal with and the incredibly complex world of our hormones.
You know, it's one of the most frustrating puzzles in modern medicine, right? A patient feels sick, they've got all these chronic symptoms, but then their lab work comes back and everything looks normal. So what's going on? What are we missing? That's the big question we're digging into.
And this isn't some rare one-off thing. It's a really common mystery that leaves both patients and doctors scratching their heads, especially in endocrinology. That's the field that deals with all our hormones.
And this really gets to the heart of the problem. You see this huge disconnect between the hard data on a lab report and how a person is actually feeling day to day. A doctor might successfully get a patient's hormone levels right back into the normal range, but the patient is still wiped out, not sleeping, they just don't feel well. And that gap, that's where our story really begins.
So what is it? What explains this gap between the lab numbers and real life? Well, the answer might lie in a really powerful idea that describes the cumulative price our bodies pay for stress, what you could call the body's wear and tear.
To really get this, we've got to compare two ideas. First, you've probably heard of homeostasis. Think of it like a thermostat in your house. It just reacts to bring the temperature back to a set point. But there's a more dynamic idea called allostasis. This is all about your body achieving stability by changing. It's not just reacting. Your brain is actually anticipating challenges and getting your body ready for them. It's predictive, it's smart.
So what happens when that amazing adaptive system is overworked for months or even years because of chronic stress? Well, that's when you get what's called allostatic load. It's the wear and tear on your body from constantly being in that state of alert. And I love this analogy. Think of it as a biological debt that you rack up from stress. Every difficult event, every chronic worry, it adds to the tab.
This chart breaks it down beautifully. So up top, you've got your stressors, major life events, chronic day-to-day pressures. These build up that allostatic load. Now, that load puts a huge demand on your body's internal network, your nerves, your hormones, your immune system. But here's the fascinating part. See that split? Depending on a whole bunch of factors, your genes, your personality, your support system, you either cope well, which builds resilience, or you cope poorly. And that's when you get impairment, illness, and those health-damaging habits.
Okay, so that's the theory. It makes a lot of sense, right? But is there any hard evidence? How does this wear and tear idea actually connect to our hormones and to specific diseases? Let's take a look at the research.
First up, let's talk about Graves' disease. It's a pretty common autoimmune issue that causes an overactive thyroid. And what the research shows again and again is a really clear link between when Graves' disease starts and when a person has been through a period of intense stress.
And this isn't just a hunch. Check out this quote from a major study way back in 1991. They found that patients with Graves' disease had experienced way more negative life events in the year before their diagnosis compared to people who were healthy. The data is it's really compelling.
And the evidence just keeps stacking up. When we look at our next case, we see a very similar pattern with Cushing's syndrome, which is a condition caused by way too much of the stress hormone cortisol. Here too, studies point to stressful life events playing a huge role in actually triggering the disease.
But wait, this is where it gets really fascinating. A study found that this connection to stress was only found in the form of the disease that starts in the pituitary gland. This is a huge clue. It suggests the stress isn't just some general factor. It's directly involving the emotional command centers of the brain, the limbic and hypothalamic systems, in kicking off the disease.
Which brings us right back to where we started. If all this wear and tear, this allostatic load, can help trigger these diseases in the first place, what happens after you get diagnosed? What happens if we ignore it during treatment?
And this right here is the missing link. A high allostatic load could be the reason why just fixing the hormone numbers on a lab test doesn't always make the patient feel any better. The body's wear and tear from all that chronic stress is still there, and it's causing all those persistent symptoms, the fatigue, the brain fog, the bad sleep, even when the lab report says you're fine.
In fact, when you look at it, the clinical implications are just enormous. This diagram shows how allostatic load is sitting right there in the middle, influencing almost every single part of a patient's health journey, from how we read their lab results to how they respond to treatment. Let's quickly break down these 6 key areas.
I mean, just think about the ripple effect. This allostatic load can literally change how a doctor interprets lab results. It can weaken the body's response to medicine. It can even affect a patient's behavior, making it harder to stick with their treatment plan and can push them towards unhealthy habits. And probably most importantly, it's the hidden source of all those frustrating symptoms that just won't go away, creating this awful vicious cycle.
So, knowing all of this, what's the answer? How can medicine actually adapt to take better care of the whole person and not just their lab values?
The shift we need is laid out so clearly right here. We've got to move past focusing only on the hard data, the numbers on a page. To really provide effective care, we also have to start valuing the soft information, things like a patient's stress levels, their mental state, and what's going on in their life and environment.
Ultimately, the solution that researchers are proposing is a big shift towards a more rehabilitative model of care. What that really means is we stop looking at an illness in a vacuum. We start seeing it as part of this complex dance between a person and their world. It means we have to start actively addressing the allostatic load, not just the hormone problem.
And this all leads us to a final and maybe the most important question. It's a question for all of us to think about when it comes to our own health. Is my healthcare team seeing the whole me? Are they taking into account this invisible weight of stress? It's a question that, honestly, could make all the difference in the world.